Good Christmas morning. This is actually, I'm making this video on the 14th. So I'm 11 days early and $1.75 short. Anyway, and just wishing you a very Merry Christmas, a blessed Christmas. And I was thinking about it. I'm not going to travel home this year for Christmas. I probably next year, we have meetings in the order, usually around this time. And I'll go home for that. I can do both then. But this year, I don't know. I don't want to run into the traffic, to tell you the truth, the air traffic and the weather and all the rest. I think my age has caught up with me in many ways. I'm more risk averse now than I used to be before come hell or high water. Although I once got stuck in Cleveland overnight. I thought, oh no, but I did make it. Anyway, trying to get home. But this is a very, very, very sacred time for us, for everyone. It's a time of memories and anticipation for the young kids. Holy cow. It's just Santa Claus and the anticipation of presents. It's exciting. And it's wonderful that way, you know. People complain about the secularization and the commercialization of Christmas. I don't buy that for a second. It's the most generous time of the year. People sacrifice to give gifts. How Christian you want it to be? Come on. Who needs the piety? I'd rather see the generosity. People contribute all over the place, both to food banks and Salvation Army, and they sacrifice in giving gifts. They spend sometimes the money they don't have to give a gift. You see? Come on. Don't be a Scrooge. I mean that. I mean it. It's a wonderful time of year. It is preeminently Christian because it's a time of hope and refreshment, renewal, just before the heart of winter. You see, when you close down, but there's a burst of life at the end of autumn and the beginning of winter. There's a burst of life, and it's refreshment, and it's Christmas. And for many of us who are old, it's a time of both reverent and remembrance. I remember Christmas so vividly because I told you this a million times, it was the time of my family. It was the only feast day that we celebrated as a family because my father worked on holidays. And so it was really a dinner for the family, maybe 20, 25 of us for dinner. All the aunts and uncles, my grandmother, grand aunts and great aunts, I guess you would say. Yeah, and cousins. We'd all get together from roughly 11 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Oh, I never left the table. You know, the dinner went on and on and on. It was a festa, a feast. The food was phenomenal when you think about who's doing the cooking. Holy cow. My father was a chef. My grandmother was a great cook for Italian food. My aunt Anita brought hers. Holy cow, you have no idea. My mother even did a few things. She wasn't much of a cook, but she made good cookies. Anyway, it was a time of the family, you see, and therefore for many of us, it's a bittersweet time. It's sweet because who cannot love Christmas? But there's a bitterness in it, in the sense of bittersweet, not bitter like morally bitter, but there's a sadness too because the table is now empty. In so many ways now, there are so few left. The generation above me is gone. No one's left. And even in my generation, we lost my cousin Harry a year ago. He was at that table since he was born. You see? That's the truth. And so it's hard to look at Christmas without a certain degree of sadness because it's a time of refreshment and remembrance. But the beauty of Christmas, it's a religious holiday with a vengeance because what it is the source of life becomes human, Christ. And in the mystery of Christ's birth, death, and resurrection, we have the hope that time and diminishment, the diminishment of time is eliminated, is overcome by the life and death of Christ and his resurrection. That we will have a Christmas dinner once again in paradise. You see? But the Christmas now is never ending. It's a Christmas Easter in which there is no end to life itself. That's, as a kid, it's not gonna mean much. You're too excited about the present and the presents, and rightfully so. But when you get old, you can take pleasure in your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, but you'll be saddened by who is not at the table with you. But you have also hope in the faith, in the firm faith, that we will be together again in paradise. Somebody asked me that, what I thought paradise was. Being together with my family at the dinner table, as it were, Christmas. The Vitali Christmas. It was not just family, it was friends. Friends would drop in during the dinner. Imagine we're at the table 8 or 9 hours, whatever it was, 8 hours anyway, darn close to it. You see, they would drop in for a drink or they come for dessert. They were welcome. Friends. And I'll tell you something else about that dinner. If you had any differences, if you had any complaints, and what family doesn't, you left them at the back door, the front door, but what you didn't do is bring them in. There were no conflicts at the table. Talk about an image of paradise. There was no arguments at the table. None were allowed. And you knew it. You knew it. When you sat at that table, you sat at a table that was the consummate table of peace. At least for those 2, 3, 5, 6 hours, you were friends and family together. That's the truth. My father was not a religious man, but intuitively he understood the nature of family. And in that sense, he was more religious than most of the piety are used to. He saw the table of the Lord was a sacred table, just as the Eucharist is a sacred table. You cannot fight in church. You cannot argue in church. You can argue before, you can argue outside, but not in the church you can't. And at the table of the Lord and at the table of the family, there is no conflict allowed. There, we eat in active peace. We make the peace at the table. Okay? The Eucharist was conceived by Christ at a dinner table among his friends. Judas walked away. He didn't get kicked out. He walked away. Christ gently tries to hold him in a way. But Judas's heart was bad. He left the table to his self-destruction, this ultimate banishment by himself, hanging from a tree. It's sad. See? In my family's table, the only way you would leave is if you wanted to leave. But you also never, ever betrayed the table. You never did that. You never. That table was a table of peace. And that's when I think of Christmas. But I think of it now where I don't have anything comparable to that in my life anymore, nor should I. But the kicker is, I think of that as the Christmas holiday. And that's what I wish for you. That you have in your own modes of living, within your own family structures, that you have peace at your table and the generosity of the heart. That there is a love and a warmth, an embracing of each other at the table peacefully, and leaving outside any gripes, any complaints. Leave them out, at least for one day. Leave them out. And if you have to pick them up later, maybe much later. But allow the peacefulness of the table, the Christmas table, to embrace your heart. I mean that. There's no friction at the table. Eat at your table in peace. In the Eucharist, the thankfulness of your family and your table in your home. Remember that. That's what Christmas is. And it is also Santa Claus. I hope you're good, because if you're bad, you ain't getting no toys, okay? I love Santa Claus. He didn't like me, but I loved him. Anyway, I just had to throw that in. I hope you do have a Santa Claus at your table. The generosity of the heart. That's what Santa Claus is. The generosity of the heart. Now, not in toys, but maybe in the affection of peace. that you love each other at the table. And this is a blessed and a Merry Christmas indeed for all of you, all whom you love and been loved by, living and dead.